No, what am I seeing? It can't be true.
A man checks his lottery ticket at 6:15 on a Tuesday morning and realizes he has just won $243 million. His hands start shaking, not with excitement, with fear, because he knows his daughter Emma was right. The daughter who disappeared 7 months ago without a trace. The daughter who was a genius with numbers and patterns and codes. And as he stares at those 6 winning numbers, numbers he has played every single week for 17 years, he understands with complete certainty that this lottery win was not luck. It was a trap his missing daughter set before she vanished. A trap that is about to expose a secret his family has buried for 2 decades. A secret about how his 3-year-old son really died. This is not a story about winning the lottery. This is a story about what happens when a brilliant daughter discovers her father has been lying for 20 years. About a family destroyed by grief and silence. About numbers that were chosen with deadly precision. And about a message that would not be discovered until 5 years later when a forensic accountant found something hidden in those lottery numbers that changed everything anyone thought they knew about luck, family, and the price of keeping secrets. Robert Mitchell walks into the Come and Go gas station on First Avenue in Cedar Rapids, Iowa on November 7, 2017. It is a Tuesday. He is 52 years old. He has been an electrician for 28 years. He is wearing his work clothes, blue jeans, work boots, a jacket with his company logo on the back. He picks up a gallon of milk. He pays for $20 of gas. And then, as he has done every single Tuesday for the past 17 years, he buys a lottery ticket. The same numbers every time. He does not think about the numbers anymore. They are simply routine, part of his weekly pattern. He hands the cashier $6. She prints the ticket. He folds it and puts it in his wallet without looking at it. He has bought this same ticket, with these same numbers, 588 times. He has never won anything more than $50. He does not expect this week to be different. He drives home. His wife, Linda, is working the evening shift at the dental office where she is a receptionist. Robert makes himself dinner. Frozen pizza. He eats it in front of the television. He watches the news. He goes to bed at 10. The next morning, November 8th, Robert wakes at 6. He makes coffee. He turns on the television while the coffee brews. The local news is on. And at 6:12, the lottery results scroll across the bottom of the screen. Robert is not really paying attention. He is thinking about a job he has scheduled that morning. Rewiring an old house on the east side of town. But something makes him look at the numbers. And when he does, his coffee cup stops halfway to his mouth. The numbers on the screen are his numbers. All 6 of them. In the exact order he plays them. He sets his coffee down very slowly. He walks to his wallet. He takes out the lottery ticket. He walks back to the television. He holds the ticket next to the screen. The numbers match. Every single one. Robert checks again. And again. And for the 4th time. They still match. He sits down at the kitchen table. He does not move for 40 minutes. His coffee gets cold. He does not notice. Because Robert Mitchell has just won the largest lottery jackpot in Iowa history. $243 million. And his first coherent thought, the thought that fills his mind as he sits in his kitchen holding a piece of paper worth more money than he will ever be able to comprehend, is not about the money. It is about his daughter. His daughter Emma, who has been missing for 7 months. Who was always the one in the family who understood numbers. Who could do complex mathematics in her head, who taught herself computer programming before she was a teenager, and who played these exact numbers, these 6 specific numbers, at her 8th birthday party when Robert let her pick lottery numbers for fun. Emma is missing, and Robert's lottery ticket just won with the numbers she chose 20 years ago. And Robert knows, with a certainty that makes him feel sick, that this is not a coincidence. Before we go deeper into this story, let us know in the comments where you are watching from. We would love to hear from you. And do not forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. This is a story that will take us from a gas station in Iowa to the FBI headquarters in Washington. From a missing person case that went cold to a forensic investigation that discovered something nobody was looking for. From a family barbecue in 1998 where a 3-year-old boy drowned to a Bitcoin wallet that would not unlock until exactly 5 years after a brilliant woman disappeared. This is a story about 6 numbers, and about what those numbers meant, and about the daughter who made sure that when her father won, the win would destroy him. Robert Mitchell was born in Cedar Rapids in 1971. His father worked at the Quaker Oats plant for 32 years. His mother was a nurse at Mercy Hospital. Robert grew up in a neighborhood on the northeast side of town where everyone knew everyone else, and people did not lock their doors and children played in the streets until dark. It was an ordinary childhood in an ordinary town. Robert was not remarkable as a student. He played baseball in high school without much success. He graduated with a B- average. He went to community college for 2 years studying electrical systems and then dropped out when his girlfriend told him she was pregnant. Her name was Linda Hayes. She was 19. Robert was 21. They got married at the courthouse in March of 1992 with both sets of parents present and a justice of the peace who had performed the same ceremony 1,000 times before. Linda was 4 months pregnant. They moved into a small rental house on the east side of Cedar Rapids. Robert got a job as an electrician's apprentice. Linda worked part-time at a daycare center. Their daughter Emma was born in July. They were young and broke and happy in the way that young people are happy when they believe their lives are going to get easier. When they believe that hard work and love are enough. When they have not yet learned that sometimes the universe takes things from you that you cannot get back. Emma was a quiet baby. She slept through the night early. She smiled at everyone. She was easy in the way that some children are easy, as though she understood, even as an infant, that her parents were doing their best, and that demanding too much would break something fragile. Robert and Linda loved her completely. They took pictures. They celebrated first words and first steps. They believed they were building something. A family. A future. A life that would be better than the ones their parents had given them. And for 3 years, that is exactly what they were doing. Emma was joined by a little brother in 1995. His name was Jacob. He was loud where Emma had been quiet. He was demanding where Emma had been easy. He filled the house with noise and chaos, and Robert and Linda loved him just as completely as they loved Emma. For 3 years, the Mitchell family was whole. Robert worked hard and got promoted to journeyman electrician. Linda stayed home with the kids and talked about going back to school someday. They bought a small house. Nothing fancy. A 2-bedroom ranch with a yard and a garage. But it was theirs. They had cookouts with family on weekends.
Is it ready yet, Daddy?
They went to church on
Almost,
Sundays.
sweetie. Just one
They
more
took
second.
the kids to the park. They were ordinary. They were happy. And then in August of 1998, Jacob drowned. The official story, the story that Robert and Linda told the police, and the story that went into the accident report, and the story that the family repeated for the next 19 years, was this. They had been at a family barbecue at Robert's older brother David's house. David had a nice place. A 4-bedroom house with a big backyard and an above-ground pool. There were about 12 people there that day. Robert and Linda and Emma and Jacob. David and his wife and their 2 kids. Robert's parents. A couple of cousins. It was August 15th. A hot sunny Saturday. The adults were in the backyard talking and drinking beer. The kids were running around playing. At some point in the afternoon, someone left the ladder to the pool accessible. Nobody remembered who. Nobody was watching Jacob specifically. He was 3 years old. Old enough to walk and run and climb. Not old enough to understand danger. At some point, and again nobody saw exactly when, Jacob climbed the ladder to the pool. He fell in. He went underwater. By the time someone noticed, by the time Robert saw his son's small body floating face down in 4 feet of water, it was too late. Robert jumped in. He pulled Jacob out. He started CPR. Someone called 911. The ambulance came. The paramedics worked on Jacob for 22 minutes. They got a pulse. They rushed him to Mercy Hospital. But Jacob never regained consciousness. He was pronounced dead at 4:17 in the afternoon. Cause of death was drowning. Accidental drowning. The kind of tragedy that happens to families who look away for just one moment. The kind of tragedy that could happen to anyone. That was the official story. And for 19 years, it was the only story. But it was not the true story. The true story, The story that Robert and his brother David agreed to tell, and the story they kept hidden for nearly 2 decades, was more complicated. There had been an argument that afternoon. A fight. About money. David owed Robert $10,000. A loan Robert had made 2 years earlier when David's business was struggling. David had promised to pay it back. He had not. Robert brought it up at the barbecue. Quietly at first, then louder when David said he did not have the money. The argument escalated. The other adults moved away. Embarrassed. Uncomfortable. Robert and David went around the side of the house where the kids could not see. The argument became a fight. Robert pushed David. David pushed back. They were shouting. And Jacob, who was 3 and who loved his father and who did not understand what was happening, ran over to try to stop it. Jacob got between them. Robert pushed David again. Hard. David stumbled backward. He collided with Jacob. Jacob fell. Not into the pool directly, but close enough that when he tried to get up, when he was crying and confused, he stumbled. And he fell into the pool. Robert saw it happen. He saw his son go into the water. He jumped in immediately. But those few seconds, the seconds it took for Robert to process what had happened, those seconds were enough. Jacob was underwater for maybe 30 seconds before Robert pulled him out. Maybe 40. It should not have been enough. Children survive longer than that underwater. But Jacob had hit his head when he fell. There was a small cut on his temple. He was unconscious when he went into the water. He never had a chance. Robert and David, in the chaos of the ambulance and the hospital and the family gathering in the waiting room, made a decision. They decided not to tell anyone about the fight, about the push, about how Jacob had really ended up in the water. They decided to say it was an accident, that nobody had been watching, that the ladder had been left accessible, that it was a horrible tragedy, but that nobody was to blame. They made that decision in less than 5 minutes. Standing in the hospital hallway, waiting to hear if Jacob was going to survive, they looked at each other and understood that if they told the truth, their family would be destroyed. Robert's marriage would be destroyed. The family would blame Robert, would blame David. It would never end. So they agreed. They would call it an accident, and they would never speak of it again. Jacob died 2 hours later, and Robert and David kept their secret. The grief that followed Jacob's death was the kind of grief that changes people permanently. Linda stopped functioning for months. She could not work, could not clean the house, could barely get out of bed. She cried for hours every day. She held Jacob's stuffed animals and looked at pictures and asked why over and over again, as though someone might have an answer. Robert went in the opposite direction. He did not cry. He did not talk about Jacob. He went to work every day. He came home. He mowed the lawn. He paid the bills. He kept moving because if he stopped moving, if he allowed himself to feel the weight of what he had done, he thought he might not survive it. And Emma, who was 6 years old, learned very quickly that her job was to be invisible. Her mother could not handle her presence. Her father could not look at her without seeing Jacob. Emma learned to be quiet, to stay in her room, to not ask for anything. She learned that her family was broken and that the best thing she could do was not make it worse. For years, the Mitchell family existed in this state. Linda eventually went back to work, but she was never the same. Robert became more and more emotionally distant. Emma grew up in a house where grief filled every room and nobody ever spoke about the child they had lost. She brought home perfect report cards and nobody noticed. She won academic competitions and her parents said that is nice, honey, and went back to staring at the television. She taught herself to read at age 4 and to code at age 10 and her parents did not know because they were not paying attention. Emma was brilliant. Exceptionally, measurably brilliant in ways that her teachers noticed immediately and tried to tell her parents about. But Robert and Linda were so deep in their own unprocessed grief that they could not see their living daughter. They could only see the ghost of their dead son. By the time Emma was in middle school, she had figured out that something about Jacob's death did not add up. She was 12 years old, and she was already smarter than most adults, and she started asking questions. Careful questions at first. She asked her mother what exactly happened that day. Linda repeated the official story. Nobody was watching. Jacob climbed into the pool. It was an accident. Emma asked if there had been other people at the barbecue. Linda said yes. Robert's family. Emma asked if anyone saw what happened. Linda said no. Everyone was inside or in the front yard. Emma asked why everyone was inside if it was a nice day. Linda's face changed. She said she did not want to talk about it anymore. And Emma understood that she had touched something. Something her mother did not want examined. Emma was smart enough not to push. But she started looking for answers on her own. She filed a public records request when she was 15. She got a copy of the police report from Jacob's death. The report said accidental drowning. No witnesses to the actual incident. Multiple adults present at the residence, but none saw the child enter the water. Ladder to above-ground pool left accessible. Standard tragic accident. But the report also included statements from neighbors. One neighbor said they heard raised voices coming from the yard earlier that afternoon. Just normal family stuff, the neighbor said. People arguing. Nothing unusual. But then later, the sirens. Emma read that line 5 times. Raised voices. People arguing. Her parents had never mentioned an argument. She asked her father about it one night. Casually. Over dinner. She said she had been thinking about Jacob lately. She asked what the day had been like before the accident. Robert's face went completely blank. He said it was a normal barbecue. Just family. Nothing unusual happened. Emma said she heard there might have been some arguing. Robert put his fork down. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, "Where did you hear that?" Emma said, "Just something she read." Robert said it was nothing. Just adults talking. Nothing to do with the accident. Then he left the table. And Emma knew he was lying. She started watching her father's relationship with his brother David more closely. They had been close before Jacob died. David was the older brother. The successful one. He owned his own construction company. He had the nice house where the barbecue had been. After Jacob's death, Robert and David barely spoke. They would be at the same family gatherings, and they would nod to each other, and that was it. There was a coldness between them. A distance. Emma watched it for years and knew it meant something. She just did not know what. Not yet. Emma went to MIT in 2010. She was 18 years old, and she had a full scholarship, and she was finally, for the first time in her life, somewhere where people understood her. She studied computer science with a focus on cryptography and data analysis. She was surrounded by brilliant people, and she worked harder than all of them. She graduated at the top of her class in 2014. She was recruited by Google. She moved to Mountain View, California. She made a 6-figure salary at 23 years old. She had everything she had worked for her entire life. And she was completely, crushingly alone. Because the thing about being brilliant and driven when you are running from a childhood you never processed is that eventually you arrive somewhere and realize you brought all the grief and all the unanswered questions with you. Emma called her parents once a month. The conversations lasted 10 minutes. How was work? Fine. How was the weather? Fine. Nobody ever asked how she really was. Nobody ever mentioned Jacob. She would hang up and sit in her expensive apartment and feel like she was 6 years old again. Invisible. She started therapy in 2015. Her therapist asked her what she needed from her parents. Emma said she needed them to see her, to acknowledge that losing Jacob did not mean they had to lose her too. The therapist asked if she had ever told them that. Emma said there was no point. They were too deep in their own pain. In December of 2015, Emma flew home for Christmas for the first time in 3 years. She spent 5 days in the house she grew up in, and she saw her parents clearly for the first time. Her mother was still depressed. Her father was still emotionally absent. Neither of them had processed Jacob's death. They had just buried it and hoped it would go away. And on Christmas Eve, after her mother went to bed, Emma sat with her father in the living room and asked him directly, "Do you blame yourself for what happened to Jacob?" Robert was quiet for a long time. Then he said yes. He said he had been the one watching the kids. He said he turned away for just a moment. He said he had carried the guilt for 17 years. Emma asked if he had ever told anyone. Robert said no. He said her mother did not know. Emma sat there processing this. Her father had been carrying this guilt for 17 years. But something about his story still did not match what Emma had found. The neighbor had heard arguing. If Robert had just turned away for a moment, why was there arguing? Emma did not confront him. She just filed it away. Another piece that did not fit. She went back to California in January of 2016, and she started investigating in earnest. Emma was an expert in data security and digital forensics. She knew how to find information that most people did not know existed. She started with her father's email. Robert had used the same email address since the late 1990s, an old AOL account. He had never closed it. And AOL, back in the late 90s, had different data retention policies than modern email providers. The emails were still there, even the deleted ones. Emma logged into her father's account remotely. She had his password. It was Jacob 1995, his dead son's name and birth year. She went back to August of 1998, to the days immediately following Jacob's death, and she found them, emails between Robert and his brother David. The emails were short, careful, but clear enough if you knew what you were looking for. David wrote, "Are we sure this is the right thing?" Robert wrote, "We do not have a choice." David wrote, "They are going to ask questions." Robert wrote, "We stick to the story. Nobody saw what happened. We were both inside." David wrote, "What if someone remembers the fight?" Robert wrote, "Then we say it was about money. Nothing to do with the accident. Keep it simple. Nobody needs to know the rest." Emma sat at her desk in Mountain View at 2 in the morning reading these emails over and over. And she understood. Jacob's death had not been a simple accident. There had been a fight between her father and her uncle about money, and Jacob had somehow been involved, or been there, or gotten in the way. And instead of telling the truth, they had agreed to cover it up, to call it an accident, to protect themselves. Her father had lied. For 18 years, he had lied about what really happened the day her little brother died. And her mother did not know. Emma sat with that information for weeks. Part of her wanted to confront her father, to demand the full truth. But she knew it would not work. He had kept the secret for 18 years. He was not suddenly going to become honest. Emma was tired of demanding things from parents who could not give them. So instead, she decided to disappear. Not immediately. She spent a year planning. She researched how people vanish. She studied voluntary missing persons cases. She learned about digital footprints and how to erase them. She opened bank accounts under fake names using techniques she learned in the cryptocurrency communities that operated in legal gray areas. She created a new identity piece by piece. The name was Sarah Chun, a small homage to her therapist. Sarah Chun got a passport, a driver's license, a credit history, bank accounts. Emma built her over months, made her real, and then Emma set up the lottery ticket. This was the piece that would connect everything. Emma knew her father played the lottery every week. The same numbers every time. Emma had asked him once when she was 8 why he played those numbers. He said they were family birthdays and important dates. Emma's birthday, Linda's birthday, the date Jacob died, a few other numbers that had meaning to Robert. Emma remembered those numbers. And Emma understood something that most people do not understand about lotteries. She could not rig the lottery. That was impossible. But she could game the probability. She could buy lottery tickets with those exact numbers. Hundreds of tickets, thousands of tickets, in multiple states, using shell companies and cryptocurrency. If she bought enough tickets with those numbers, eventually, statistically, those numbers would hit. She ran the calculations. Based on historical data, if she bought tickets consistently across multiple state lotteries with the same numbers, those numbers would hit somewhere between 1 and 3 years. She set up automated purchases. Every week, the same 6 numbers. Purchased through online lottery services that allowed bulk buying. Paid for with Bitcoin. Untraceable. And she set up the website. A simple site that would sit completely dormant until triggered by a very specific event. The event was this: a lottery jackpot with those 6 specific numbers, claimed by someone named Robert Mitchell. When that happened, the website would activate. It would publish a letter. A letter Emma wrote explaining everything. The emails she found. The lie about Jacob's death. The truth about what really happened. And instructions for how to find more evidence. Emma programmed it carefully. The website would not just publish the letter. It would also send copies to news organizations, to the FBI, to everyone who needed to know. Her father would win the lottery. He would be in the news. He would be famous. And then everyone would know what he had done. Emma also created a Bitcoin wallet. She encrypted it with a code. The code was the lottery numbers arranged in a very specific mathematical pattern. Only someone with her level of expertise in cryptography would ever find it. She set the wallet to automatically release a message on April 15, 2022, exactly 5 years after she planned to disappear. The message would prove she was still alive, still watching. It was her insurance policy, her way of making sure the truth stayed out there even if her father tried to bury it again. Emma chose April 15, 2017 as the day she would leave. Tax day, a day that symbolized accounting. Debts coming due. She went to work at Google that day like it was normal. She attended meetings. She ate lunch with coworkers. She gave no indication that anything was different. That evening, she walked out of her apartment building with a single backpack. She left her phone on the kitchen counter. She left her car in the parking garage. She left everything that was Emma Mitchell behind. She took a bus to the train station, a train to San Francisco. She checked into a hotel under the name Sarah Chun. The next morning she flew to Toronto, then to London, then to Prague. By the time Google reported her missing on April 20th, Emma Mitchell was living in a small apartment in Prague working remotely for a cybersecurity company that had no idea who she really was. The police investigated. They contacted her parents. Robert and Linda flew to California. They walked through Emma's empty apartment trying to understand what had happened. The police asked the standard questions. Had Emma been depressed? Had she mentioned suicide? Had there been any sign she was planning to leave? Robert and Linda said no. They said Emma had always been fine. She was the easy one, the one who did not need anything. The police found no evidence of foul play. Emma had clearly left voluntarily. Her passport was gone. Her bank accounts were empty. She had planned this. The investigation stalled within weeks. Missing adults who leave voluntarily are not a priority. Emma Mitchell became another name in a database. Her parents went home to Iowa and tried to figure out how to live with another child gone. For 7 months, Robert and Linda existed in a fog. They did not talk about Emma. They had never learned how to talk about loss. Robert went to work. Linda went to work. They came home and ate dinner in silence and went to bed. And then on November 7th, 2017, Robert bought his weekly lottery ticket, the same numbers he had played for 17 years. He put it in his wallet and forgot about it. The next morning, he turned on the television and saw that every single number had matched. $243 million. And his first thought was not about the money. It was about Emma. Because Emma understood numbers. Emma understood patterns and probability. And Robert knew, with a certainty that made his hands shake, that this was not random. This was Emma. She had done something. He just did not know what yet. Robert told Linda about the lottery win. Her reaction was joy, disbelief, relief. She said this would change everything. They could finally breathe. But Robert felt only dread. He hired a lawyer before claiming the ticket. He asked the lawyer to investigate where the ticket had been purchased. The lawyer thought this was strange, but agreed. It took 2 weeks. The lawyer came back with information that confirmed Robert's worst fears. There were hundreds of other lottery tickets with the exact same numbers, purchased across multiple states over the past year. All bought online, all paid for with cryptocurrency, all traceable back to shell companies. And the shell companies had all been created by Emma Mitchell. The IP addresses led back to her apartment in Mountain View. Emma had bought hundreds of lottery tickets with her father's numbers. She had spent tens of thousands of dollars, maybe more, and she had done it knowing that eventually, statistically, those numbers would win. And when they did, Robert would win too, because he played the same numbers every week. Emma had not rigged the lottery. She had simply gamed the odds. And somehow, impossibly, Robert's ticket had been the only one to win. Not Emma's tickets, just his. The odds of that were astronomical. But it had happened. Robert claimed the lottery prize 3 weeks later. The media coverage was massive. Local electrician wins $243 million. The cameras came to his house. The reporters asked how it felt. Robert said it felt surreal. Linda said they were blessed. Nobody mentioned Emma. Nobody connected the missing daughter to the lottery win. Why would they? It had been 7 months. The story was old news. And lottery wins are supposed to be about luck. Robert and Linda took the lump sum. $146 million after taxes. They hired a financial advisor. They bought a new house. They donated money to charity. They tried to act like people whose lives had just improved. But Robert could not shake the feeling that Emma had done this for a reason, and he was terrified to find out what that reason was. He hired a tech consultant, someone who could look deeper into the shell companies Emma had created. The consultant found a website, a dormant site that had been registered at the same time as the shell companies. The site was blank, but buried in the code was a trigger. The website was programmed to activate when certain conditions were met, when a lottery jackpot was won with specific numbers, when someone named Robert Mitchell appeared in the news in connection with that win. On November 29, 2017, the day Robert did his first televised interview about the lottery win, the website activated. It published a single page. The page contained a letter from Emma, dated April 1, 2017, 2 weeks before she disappeared. The letter said this: "Dad, you taught me that some secrets are too heavy to carry. You carried yours for 20 years, and it destroyed you. It destroyed Mom. It destroyed me. I am leaving so I do not become you. So I do not spend my life carrying something I cannot put down. The lottery ticket is my gift to you. Not the money, the exposure. Because the only way you will ever be free is if everyone knows. I know you blame yourself for Jacob. I know you think I did not notice how broken you were. But I noticed everything. I always did. I just learned to be quiet about it. I am done being quiet. I am done being invisible. I am done waiting for you to see me. This is me making sure you cannot look away. I know what really happened the day Jacob died. I found the emails. I know about the fight with Uncle David. I know Jacob got in the way. I know you pushed David and Jacob fell. I know you and David decided to call it an accident, to say nobody was watching, to protect yourselves. I have known for 2 years. I carried that knowledge the same way you carried the guilt, and it poisoned me the same way it poisoned you. So I am giving you the truth, whether you want it or not. The lottery ticket will make you rich, and it will make you famous. And when you are famous, the truth will come out. Because I made sure of it. I uploaded the emails. I set up triggers. I created a system that will release everything. You cannot stop it. You can only choose how you respond. I love you. I forgive you. And I am never coming back. But I want you to be free. Because I know what it is like to be trapped. I know what it is like to carry something so heavy you cannot breathe. I am choosing freedom. And I am giving you the option to choose it too. Tell the truth. Or do not. But either way, everyone will know. I made sure of that. I hope the money helps. I hope it makes you happy. But I do not think it will. Because you and I both know that what you really needed was to tell the truth. I am giving you that, whether you wanted it or not. Love, Emma. The website went viral within hours. Millions of people saw the letter. The media picked it up immediately. Lottery winner's missing daughter left secret message exposing family tragedy. The story exploded. Reporters descended on Cedar Rapids. They demanded to know what really happened to Jacob Mitchell. They found the police report. They found the neighbor's statement about hearing arguing. They started asking questions. Robert refused to comment. He locked himself in his house. Linda read the letter sitting at the kitchen table. She read it 5 times. Then she looked at Robert and asked if it was true, if he had lied about how Jacob died. Robert could not speak. Linda stood up and walked out of the house. She did not come back for 3 days. The FBI got involved. They had been investigating Emma's disappearance. Now they had evidence that she had planned it meticulously. The shell companies, the lottery tickets, the website. They wanted to know where Emma was. They wanted to know if the emails existed. They brought in forensic accountants and computer specialists. They tore apart Emma's digital life. They found the emails, recovered from Robert's old AOL account exactly where Emma said they would be. The emails confirmed what Emma had written. There had been a fight about money. Jacob had been caught in the middle. Robert and David had covered it up. The pressure on Robert became unbearable. The media was camped outside his house. His phone rang constantly. Reporters shouted questions every time he left the house. On December 15, 2017, Robert called a press conference. He stood in front of cameras and reporters and told the truth for the first time in 19 years. He said that Jacob's death had not been a simple accident. He said that he and his brother David had been arguing that day about money that David owed him. The argument had become physical. They pushed each other. Jacob, who was 3 years old, had run over trying to stop them. Jacob got between them. Robert pushed David. David stumbled. He knocked into Jacob. Jacob fell. He hit his head. He fell into the pool. Robert jumped in immediately. But those few seconds, the seconds it took Robert to understand what had happened, were enough. Jacob was unconscious when he went into the water. He never recovered. Robert said he and David had made a decision in the chaos. They decided to call it an accident, to say nobody had been watching, to protect themselves. Robert said he had carried the guilt for 19 years, that it had destroyed his marriage and his relationship with his daughter, that Emma had discovered the truth and had disappeared because she could not live in a family built on lies. The confession was broadcast live. Millions watched. The reaction was immediate and divided. Some called Robert a monster. Others called him a man destroyed by his own guilt. But the legal reality was clear. The statute of limitations had passed. Robert could not be charged with anything. He had gotten away with it legally, but not publicly. The truth was out, and it would follow him forever. Linda filed for divorce in January of 2018. She said she could not stay married to a man who had lied to her about their son's death for 19 years. She said every day of their marriage had been based on a lie. She could not forgive that. The divorce was finalized in May. Linda took half the lottery money, $73 million. She moved to Florida. She eventually remarried. She has said publicly that she hopes Emma is happy, that she understands why Emma left, that she wishes she had been a better mother. Robert kept the other half of the money, but he did not keep it long. He started donating it almost immediately. To children's charities, to drowning prevention organizations, to family counseling services. Within 2 years, he had given away 90% of his lottery winnings. He moved to a small condo in Des Moines. He works part-time as an electrician. He does not give interviews. When asked about the lottery ticket in 2020, he said only this: "It was never about the money. It was about what I owed her. I owed her the truth. She made sure I paid." And Emma Mitchell was never found. The FBI traced her as far as Prague. They found evidence she lived there for 2 years under the name Sarah Chun. Then the trail went cold. No employment records. No bank activity. No digital footprint. She had disappeared again. The FBI believes she is living somewhere under a new identity, that she is alive and well and has no intention of ever being found. They closed the active investigation in 2020. But there was one more thing. In 2022, 5 years after Emma disappeared, a forensic accountant was reviewing lottery data for an unrelated fraud case. He was analyzing number selection patterns, and he noticed something strange about the Mitchell lottery win from 2017. He ran an analysis. The 6 winning numbers, when arranged in a specific mathematical sequence, formed a code, a cryptographic code, the kind Emma Mitchell would have been able to create. He broke the code. It led to a Bitcoin wallet address. The FBI traced the wallet. It contained one transaction, a message, sent on April 15, 2022, exactly 5 years after Emma disappeared. The message said this: "I am still here. I am still watching. And I am not the only one who knows your secrets. If you are reading this, you found the code, which means you were looking, which means I was right. Some truths do not stay buried. No matter how long you wait, no matter how hard you try to forget, the truth always finds a way. I did not disappear to punish you. I disappeared to be free. But I left you the tools to be free too. Whether you use them is up to you. Love always, Emma." The FBI tried to trace the Bitcoin transaction. It went through multiple wallets in multiple countries with multiple layers of encryption. It was impossible to trace to a physical location. Emma had made sure of that. The message confirmed what everyone suspected. Emma Mitchell was alive. She was well. And she was still watching her father from whatever corner of the world she had built her new life in. The FBI released a statement saying they believed Emma was alive and had sent the message. They said they had no plans to pursue her. She had broken no laws. She had simply chosen to leave. That was her right. The story became news again in 2022. Documentaries were made. Podcasts covered it. People debated whether Emma was a hero or whether she was cruel, whether her father deserved what happened or whether Emma had gone too far. The debate continues. But Emma is not part of it. She said what she needed to say, then she vanished. This story raises questions without easy answers. Was Emma right to disappear? Was the lottery ticket justice or revenge? Was Robert a victim of his own guilt or a man who deserved to be exposed? Can a family recover from secrets this large? These are questions this story does not answer. These are questions it leaves with you. Because the truth about families and secrets and grief is that there are no clean lines, no clear villains, no perfect victims. There is only the messy reality of people trying to survive their own pain and often destroying each other in the process. Emma chose to leave, to burn every bridge and build a new life where nobody could find her. Robert chose to confess. Eventually, after his daughter forced his hand, Linda chose to walk away from a marriage that had been built on a lie. And Jacob, the child at the center of everything, never had a choice. He was 3 years old. The ripples of his death spread across 25 years and destroyed a family piece by piece. The lottery ticket sits in an evidence locker in Iowa. It will stay there indefinitely. 6 numbers chosen with precision. 1 through a combination of statistical manipulation and impossible luck. The ticket was never about money. It was about a daughter who spent her entire childhood being invisible, finally making certain that her father could not look away. The ticket that exposed a 20-year secret. The ticket that destroyed a family and freed everyone in different ways. The ticket that ended with a message nobody saw coming. A message that said, "I know what you did. And now everyone else knows too. And I am finally free." Robert Mitchell is 60 years old now. He lives alone in Des Moines. He works a few days a week. He thinks about Emma every day. He wonders where she is. If she is happy. If she found the peace she was looking for. He has said the lottery win was the worst thing that ever happened to him. That he would give every dollar back if Emma would come home. But Emma is not coming home. And Robert knows that. Linda lives in Sarasota. She volunteers at a grief center. She keeps a photo of Emma on her wall. Emma at her MIT graduation. Smiling. About to step into a future that would lead to her disappearance. Linda has said she understands why Emma left. That if she had been Emma, she might have left too. And Emma. 5 years after the Bitcoin message, there have been no more communications. No confirmed sightings. No evidence of where she is or who she has become. The FBI believes she is living under a new identity somewhere in the world. Possibly married. Possibly with children of her own. Possibly working in technology. Possibly doing something completely different. They believe she planned her disappearance too carefully to ever be found unless she chooses to be. And she does not choose to be. Emma Mitchell chose freedom. She chose to erase herself to save herself. And she had the intelligence and the resources and the determination to do exactly that. The lottery ticket was her final message to her father. The message that said, "I saw you. I always saw you. Even when you could not see me. And now everyone sees what I saw." Some people disappear to be found. Some people disappear because they finally, after a lifetime of being invisible, need to be seen. Emma Mitchell did both. And whether that makes her a hero or a villain or something more complicated than either is a question only you can answer. Before we close, we want to hear from you. Do you think Emma was right to disappear? Do you think Robert deserved what happened? Do you think the secret should have stayed buried? What would you have done in Emma's position? Leave your thoughts in the comments. We read every one. If this story moved you, share it. And if you have not subscribed yet, now is the time. Hit that button. Turn on notifications. Every week, we bring you stories about real people and impossible choices and consequences nobody saw coming. Next week, we are covering a story that starts with a missing inheritance and ends with a DNA test that changes 3 families forever. You will not want to miss it. To everyone watching, remember this. Some secrets are too heavy to carry alone. And sometimes the only way to be free is to make sure everyone knows. Even if it costs you everything. Emma Mitchell chose freedom. And she made sure her father understood the price of silence.